You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to Packers Weekly Podcast. Excuse me, got a little thing in my throat there. Part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are just some diehard Packers fans that love talking about the Pack. We're not getting into all the national sports media talking points and all the nonsense. We're sticking to football, and we're sticking to the Packers. So we're diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season and sorting through the drama and the rumors of the offseason. And here we are in it. If y'all want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us. Give us a follow on all the socials and subscribe to the Packers Talk YouTube channel. Those things help us out a lot and don't take you much time or effort. So please help us out there. Before we get going, let's take care of the business, right? Let's talk about a few things from our sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. Tim, good evening, sir. How you doing?
Good evening, Miles. I'm doing really good. It is finally draft week. We've been talking about it for a long time. Really excited. We're finally here. We finally get to actually see the picks happen instead of talking about it. I've seen enough mock drafts. I've seen enough, articles about the 15 or 20 different scenarios that the Packers could have for their first pick. I mean, yeah, some of it's just exhausting and frustrating to read. I'm done with it, but I'm also really excited because no matter what happens, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we get to welcome in a new crop of Packers, and that's really cool.
Yes.
And we can talk about it and break it down and see who these new guys are. And it's really cool, and it's really fun and exciting if you just kind of block out some of the noise that's going on. And it's ending, and we're actually getting closer to seeing who they're going to pick and who our newest Packers are. So, yeah, really excited. How about you?
Very excited. It's like Christmas, birthday. You got a surprise coming. You don't know what it is. You can kind of guess what it is. We can't really shake them and see what's in there, see how heavy they are. I mean, I guess we've done a little bit of that, right? We got the measurables. We've seen the presents that could be under the tree there. So yeah, man, I'm very excited. It's for every team this week. All the fans, we're all sitting here. Who do we want? Who do we think? But we're all guaranteed to get new players on our team this week. That is guaranteed. So strap in and enjoy. If you're a Bears fan, good freaking luck to you. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll have some fun with them. But if you're a Packers fan, in Goot we trust right now. Just like you can strap in, you can relax. You can look at this man's track record over the last few years. You can look at this roster, and you can just be excited about whoever they plug into it because they probably know what they're doing at this point. Like we can just sort of – it's not 100%. Nobody's 100%, but they're about as good as it gets right now. Goot and the scouting team. So I would say kick back and relax, Packers fans. Enjoy whoever they are about to bring in. And, hey, next week all the guessing games are over. We can start diving into who these guys are and how we think they'll fit in. And before we know it, we're going to be in training camp, right? We're going to just overlook this the awful desert and just drought that is the off season. It's like July-ish. Until then, we've got mini camps and OTAs and just some things here and there that we'll get to enjoy and pick apart. But, yeah, training camp is right around the corner. So very excited to see the new names that they bring up this week, man. Very
and
excited.
just be excited about it. Like, even if it's not one of your guys or one of the guys you wanted to see them draft or you have questions about them, just embrace them. They're now Packers.
Yes.
And none of us know how any of these guys are going to turn out in the NFL. It's all a guessing game. even the GMs and the scouts and the personnel people who watch them, they don't truly know. They have a much better idea than us as fans, but nobody truly knows. So just enjoy it and just be happy. And this is, the biggest point of the Packers offseason. This is what the team tries to build itself on, is draft and develop. They're not a big free agency team, though obviously they made a couple big moves this offseason, but haven't made a whole lot of news since McKinney and Josh Jacobs, and wouldn't expect much news other than probably a Jordan Love extension between the draft and the start of training camp. So, enjoy it. These 3 days are a huge part of their offseason. As for us as fans, for them as an organization, like, this is probably the most action, the best it gets. I don't want to say the best it gets, because the Jordan Love extension is pretty awesome, and signing McKinney and Jacobs was too. But this is the most action, this most we're going to see until they start practicing at Ray Nitschke Field at the end of July. So enjoy it and embrace it, and welcome in a new crop of players, whoever they may be.
No doubt. And yeah, so you got any draft plans? What are you gonna do? How we've got 3 days of events here.
I'll be talking to you after all those picks come rolling in Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday. Yeah,
of course.
So we'll be chatting about it. Other than that, I'll just be tuned into what's going on, tuned into what Packer fans are thinking and doing, and looking at all the different draft guides that I have and draft analysis, and just excited to see who they're taking or what trades they're making or whatever it may be, and then hopping on here and talking with you afterwards so we can all break it down.
Heck yeah, man. No, I'm excited. I'm doing the same, trying to stay close to home, try to stay low key, not get too much going on. I like having the main broadcast going but on mute, and then
Yes.
get to dive into live tweeting, or follow whoever has a good broadcast on YouTube. Pat McAfee usually has some fun. So yeah, if you guys are interested in what we think after these picks, we are going to jump in and live stream probably Thursday evening, Friday evening, maybe depending on where we're at, how we're feeling, for a little bit on Saturday to just chatter about all the things that have taken place by that point in time. So yeah, please join us. Keep an eye out. We'll blast it out on Twitter and YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. Quick shout out. Got some folks jumping in the comments real quick. Chris, appreciate you, sir. Catching the first live show. Loving it. All right. Thank you very much, sir. And then we got Tyler over here. Agree with what we said about Goot. His first round picks have been reaches sometimes. Yeah, I hear you. Quay, Stokes, Wyatt. Yeah. But hindsight being what it is, I almost don't even care where he gets them at this point. Look at Carl Brooks. Is anybody mad we got that guy in the 6th round? So yeah, I'll take some of the reaches with some of the late round catches that he gets, and overall, looking at these guys, he's doing pretty good. I mean, I get it. Stokes has his injuries. There's knocks on everybody. Nobody's perfect right now, but Goot's doing a lot better than some of these other GMs right now.
Yeah, and I think when you draft at the back of the first round, like they continue to do, which is great. We want them to. Wish they could draft 32nd every year, but you're going to have guys that are going to vary more from the mock drafts or the top 100 lists that you see from analysts, because that's where it gets kind of more cloudy. I think a lot of analysts have the same top 10 or top 15 or top 20 guys. Maybe they're in different orders, but then after that, it kind of gets all over the place. And even some of the consensus big boards aren't always. It's a consensus media big board. It ain't a consensus what they think in personnel department boards. So yeah, some of them, they were reaches. I think the Quay Walker one, just because it was surprising, because they hadn't really valued off-ball linebackers before. He's such a great athlete. That made sense, but it just position-wise, that was a surprise. And then Devontae Wyatt being a surprise just because he was older when he came in, when he was 23 or 24 when they drafted him. So those were definitely surprises. But the back half, the last 10 picks or so, the first round, it's not just the Packers that you see some picks that you weren't expecting. Other teams do that as well, because that's when the draft kind of gets into that window of 20 to 50, where everybody's kind of ranked similarly, and the boards are going to vary a lot at that point. So yeah, there's been some surprises. Goot seems to have a lot of surprises. I think last year was the first year there really weren't a ton, unless you count the kicker, or maybe Jaden Reed wasn't a Packer type of guy because of his size. That worked out well so far. But yeah, I mean, Jair was a surprise too, just because they had to really stretch the height standards, the height thresholds that they have for him. So that was a surprise.
And look how that played out, right?
Yeah, and that's worked out well. And I think Quay and Wyatt, they've been up and down, but let's see them in a new defense. I think we'll learn a whole lot more about them after 2024 season. And I think then we'll be able to say what they really are as far as NFL players.
Yeah, I think you have to have that mentality for every defensive player on the roster right now, right? Like, and we can be excited about some, right, and sort of project that our press man corners are probably going to thrive, or at least we hope. So. But yeah, as far as how does Xavier McKinney come in and fit in, and whoever the draft picks, I mean, there are almost certainly to be more than one safety that they would draft in this draft. Based on how they've done their meetings and their visits, I would say they've put a pretty strong focus on that position. But yeah, I mean, I kind of lost my train of thought there on where they were going with that. But
and I'll just say about sorry, I'll just say about talking about Quay and Devontae Wyatt. Devontae Wyatt, like, he needs to improve a lot against the run. There's no doubt, but his pass rush was pretty good, and he just needs to finish, and that's a big part of it, granted. But if he could have finished some of the sacks where he had his hands on the quarterback, or he just missed the tackle, probably would have added like 3 or 4 sacks last season. I think the perception of him would have changed greatly, and we wouldn't be sitting here saying maybe that was a reach, in the first round. So if he can improve that, if he can get the quarterback on the ground, I think obviously it's gonna change how we feel about him. And as far as Quay Walker go, it's been up and down with Quay. But, if I think this defense, I hope this defense can really fit him well. I think that capability is there. I think his abilities, he has them. I just think they have to fit him in, or fit the defense around his abilities better than what they were doing in Joe Barry's scheme. And if they can do that, he's got the talent. Yeah. So let's not pass judgment completely on those guys yet. Let's see them under Jeff Hafley and a new staff.
As young as this roster is, and I kind of remember where I was going with that thought before, but as young as this roster is, like, these guys are still growing, and there's a lot of people that are, I see it almost every day on Twitter, the folks that have already decided that Christian Watson just can't do anything the rest of his career. It's like, my goodness, this man is still very young. Like, let's get a grip, y'all. The guy's been in the league for 2 years. So there's a lot that we need to let happen. And trust that the coaches and the scouts know what they're doing, right? So when you bring in a Jeff Hafley, you've got the guys you've got. You didn't see huge turnover, right? I mean, and we get to see how that'll play out. A lot of these guys are talented, so you don't necessarily need it. But, there's a lot of question marks around your Eric Stokes type guys, right? He's been injured, and, what's going to happen there. So I'd say, like, there's just no reason to write guys like that off any earlier than you have to. I think there was one person who kind of brought up, like, well, if they take a corner in the first round, does that mean Stokes is gone? It's like, no, I think that's like a move of, like, putting the odds in your favor. It's like, hey, if this works out, dude, we are deep at cornerback. If it doesn't, well, oh well, like, that's how it goes. Being that with Stokes. And actually, yeah, so I see Tyler's got another question here. I want to bring this up.
A couple good ones.
How do you feel about balancing getting the guy you want versus where you draft him for value? See, that's where at this point, the way that Goot has drafted, Carl Brooks being a good example, but you've got Valentine in the 7th round. He's Rasheed Walker in the 7th round. He's found guys late. So at this point, I'm kind of like, look, man, wherever you want to take him, just get him. Like, Cam Kitchens is that guy for me. I don't care if he's 1st or 4th round. Wherever they think he's going to go with it. because he's, and I think there's a lot of prospects like that where it's not very clear who values them how, right? Like there's probably, again, the threshold conversation has been had. We get that. But there are very real things like that where a GM will take a guy off their board entirely, and it's not necessarily obvious. It's not like, oh, that guy has an injury issue, take him off the board, or that guy's got character issues, take him off the board. It may be a thing like the Packers. It's like, he's just too short. We just don't look down there. We're not saying that there won't be talented people there. We're just saying that the data shows is if we fish up in this pond, then our success rate is higher. And so I think that's where you have to sort of look at it as far as like balancing getting your guy versus where you get them. It's like they're really playing poker with other GMs. And so to tie back to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, Tim, is there's a lot of reactions to the draft, like, oh, man, that was a reach, or, oh, what a steal. It's like, maybe,
Right.
the GMs are the ones who are really determining that. So maybe, like, here's what you really got to look at. And a lot of y'all are fantasy football players, right? So you're in there, you're doing drafting here and there. Every now and then you're going to reach on a guy because you're not going to have another swing at him. You might be taking him 20 positions too early, but in the grand scheme of things, if he's a guy, like, he's your guy, he's the guy you got to have in that spot. You got to have him on your roster. You take him there. And again, if it's a little bit of a reach, okay. But at the end of the day, when we look back on these drafts, how often are we really criticizing, well, he took that guy 20 spots just too early? Like, we're just not doing that. They either hit or they didn't.
Exactly.
And so I think really what we have to look at is who's available around that. And the one that I like to draw attention to, I hope I'm getting both of the players right, but I think I am. Jay Sternberger was drafted right before Terry McLaurin.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
You missed.
I don't give a damn whether they reached on Sternberger or not. You missed. A great receiver.
Yeah.
So that's the way I think you need to look at it, is like who's there when they're on the clock, and when they take that guy, like, look at it as like, okay, they took that guy ahead of this other guy. Why? And those are fun games we can play, and we'll have those conversations.
Yeah. And I think to this point, like Goody in his press conference today made a good point. They had asked him about trading back and how he traded back twice last year and then took Jayden Reed. And the question was kind of like, you kept trading back. Did you feel comfortable risking it, knowing that there was a chance you weren't going to get Reed? And his answer was basically, we had him grouped. They had already taken Musgrave, and they had Reed with other players. So, yeah, they wanted Reed, but they just saw the value and said, like, we can move back. And then they moved back again. We can move back, and we're still going to, maybe we don't get Reed, maybe somebody takes him, but we feel comfortable getting somebody else from that group. And he mentioned Tucker Kraft, who they ended up getting later on in the third round, but he would have been probably the pick if Reed wasn't there. And he just felt like you can't fall in love with a guy. And it was more so like they're getting value by getting extra picks, moving back, and they're still going to get somebody from that, however many guys they had, closely graded together. Might not have been Jayden Reed, could have been somebody else, but they felt like, okay, if we don't get Jayden Reed, we have however many other guys, 4 guys or whatever it might have been in this group, and we're going to get one of them. So let's add more picks and value. And I think it's kind of how it's hard for us as fans, because we don't know how their board is. We don't know what the trade offers are and all of that. But you can't get too obsessed with who you really like and fall in love with players.
Yeah.
Because you have to look at it for value, and you have to look at like what you're adding. And it's not so much like where you're seeing, who Daniel Jeremiah has rated in a certain spot. And well, we picked, so-and-so at 25, and Daniel Jeremiah's got him rated. He's the 45th best prospect. Well, who cares?
Yeah.
In a way, like
it just doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah. And as far as trading goes, you got to realize when they're trading back, like they're telling you, there's enough guys there that they feel comfortable moving back.
Right.
And they're not necessarily trading back to target somebody. They're just saying, we have enough guys here. We're going to get one of them, and we can move back, 5 or 10 spots, whatever it may be.
Right.
And get that guy. So yeah, it's it's a puzzle, and it's part of the game that all the GMs play. And it's about, and I think if you're more successful, you don't panic and you don't make these chaotic panic moves, and you just I know it's cliche, but you'll kind of let the board fall where it may. And I think the teams that are more successful, that build their teams and are contenders every year, are the teams that do that, that can draft well and not try to package multiple picks and constantly be moving up and constantly be targeting one guy, because your probabilities, no matter how good that player you think they may be, they have just depending on where you're picking them, they have just as much a chance or more to bust than they do to hit. So you're better off with more picks, and you're better off trading down in most cases. So yeah, it's value. It's a poker game, and it's a complicated puzzle, and it doesn't seem like there's just so much we don't know on the outside to really fully evaluate like what they're doing. But
Yeah.
I think the bottom line is like trust in what Goot's doing and trust his process, because we're seeing it. It's working. We're seeing
It's working. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not just Goot. You can go back to Ted Thompson, and you can go back to this whole system that was built under Ron Wolf.
Yeah.
It's worked over a long period of time.
And Goot clearly understands it well and has, adapted it with his own style, I think, very well. And, that's where sort of outsource that, right? Like instead of, second guessing, oh, it was a reach or it was this or that. When he makes a pick, be like, all right, why do you do that? Let's go find out why this kid's special, and go figure that out from that angle. But that's what is most exciting to me is when they make a pick, it's like, oh, okay, so this is the guy. Or like, at every pick, they don't look at it like we do, where it's like, oh, the first round's exciting, but the seventh round, I don't care. They care about every last one of those picks, man. To your point, Tim. And I actually did this one time, did a little exercise, and I think it's been a while, but I believe it was from like 2012 to 2022. And the Packers GM versus the Bears GM and how they did in the draft. And I did this loosely on contributors. So starters, or maybe, guys that had been with the team for a while, maybe there's profootballreference.com. They've got great ways of lining that data up. Anyway, what it came down to is they actually had relatively similar hit rates. I think the Bears actually even had a higher percentage hit rate, like 58% to 54%, somewhere in there. But the Packers had twice as many draft picks. So think about that, right? Like you immediately have more starters over that period of time just by having more swings at the plate, like what Goot was talking about today.
And to your point, and I mean, I believe this is correct. I could be off by a pick or two, but I believe the Bears just have 4 picks total in this draft coming up.
They have 4?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big number, Tim. Are you sure you can count to 4? It's 4?
4.
Oh my goodness.
For okay, number 1, if you hit on Caleb Williams, then your draft is a success, obviously.
Yeah.
If he's just okay and not a superstar, then, the other 3 picks better be really good. And you're limiting yourself, like as far as starters, as far as quality depth and how you can build your team out. I mean, the Bears are a rebuilding team. They should be getting as many picks as they possibly can get.
By choice.
Like,
they shipped off Justin Fields for a Happy Meal.
Right. I mean, they traded a pick for Keenan Allen. They traded a pick for Montez Sweat. Those are good players. We'll see how long Keenan Allen's there for. But 4 picks in an entire draft, like nobody, I don't care if you're a rebuilding team or if you're the Chiefs who have won 2 straight Super Bowls, like you need a lot more picks than that, because it's not just about 2024. These picks are about the next 4 years at least. You hope it's, they're along with you longer, but
yeah,
and I believe let me double check, but what I've seen is 4 picks. The Bears
so that illustrates exactly what I was just saying, though. So if they're both hitting 50%, the Bears have 4 picks. That means they found 2 starters. If the Packers have 10 picks, that means they found 5 starters. They found more players than the Bears, or starters than the Bears had picks. Yeah. And It's 50%, right? I mean, and over 10 years, and it was just a little bit north of 50, but that's pretty reliable. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and I double checked. It is 4 picks. They have no picks after the 4th round, and they go from pick 9 to pick 75 in the 3rd round as their next pick. So again, you
You're
have two
missing a
top,
lot of meat of the draft right there. There's a lot of talent in that range.
right, and you have 2 top 10 picks. Maybe they trade back from 9, though it seems like they want to take a receiver or a lineman or maybe somebody on
tempting.
whatever. Maybe they do, and they added more picks. But you have 2 top 10 picks, which could be superstars.
Well,
Could be, but we've seen the history of quarterbacks. It's 50%.
yeah. And top
I
10
mean,
picks aren't slam dunks either.
No,
There's
no.
plenty of busts in the top 10 every year.
And again, like, where's your depth going to come from? Where are other start? Like, I don't know. I'd rather be like, I know we've debated this a little bit, but the Packers have 11 picks, and this is, they just were in the divisional round of the playoffs. We're hopefully on the upswing and going to be a contender, and I know there's people saying trade up and we have extra picks, trade up and go for it and make this move and that move. But I mean, I'd much rather have 11 picks than be sitting there with the first pick and then have just 3 after that. Like, it just, your percentages are so much better.
Now, give me the Packers draft capital right now over the Bears all day.
Yeah. Even without the number 1 pick or 2 top 10s, like, I just give me more swings at it.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. And so, good question here from Sam. He said, any chance you think Goot would trade up from 41 to nab Edgerrin Cooper? I'll let you swing at that one, Tim.
Yeah, I think they very well could pick him at 41, and I think he could be even a surprise pick at 25, believe it or not. So I don't think they're going to necessarily have to trade up for him, and it goes back to positional value. Like, would they trade up for an off-ball linebacker? Like, they wouldn't do it in the first round, and I think there's only an outside chance they would take him at 25, though it's possible. I think they definitely could take him at 41, but would they move from 41 up? I think it's probably unlikely, but I could definitely see him being somebody the Packers like a lot. I mean, he was productive. He's got, decent size, long arms. He tested like an athletic freak. So, like, I could definitely see them liking him a lot. I don't think they're not going to necessarily have to move. I think there could be a real good shot he's there at 41.
Yeah, he's one of those that, like, there's this group. It's like, I don't take him and I don't care where. And he's one of those. I would love it if they find a way to come out of this draft with Edgerrin Cooper. And it's funny because I put it out on Twitter earlier this week. We got some good responses, but it was a mock draft challenge, right? Don't draft anybody with the name Cooper. You can't draft Graham Barton. You can't draft Braylon Allen. I think I even had to add an extra one, like Dominic Pooney or something. Yeah, and so the fun thing is, and this is where I want to give Packers Twitter their due, is I think we've found the collection of guys that are really Packer guys. Graham Barton is absolutely a Packer guy, no doubt about it. That's why he's on all the mock drafts. Does that mean he'll be a Packer? It's a poker match with 32 participants, So I think that's what makes it impossible to project and also very difficult to say, oh, this guy's a reacher, this guy's not. Because you're looking at positional depth, positional value, things like that, and we have no idea how the Packers play those things out. And I think that they're different every year, to be honest with you. You can look at the past a little bit and just know what they're willing to do, but do they have the same positional value on the off-ball linebacker position this year as they did 2 years ago when they take Quay Walker? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do they have the same positional value on receiver this year as they did when they took, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs? I don't know. I don't know that they need to, because again, I've been a huge fan of this receiver class, and I think it's just wildly loaded, and that kind of leads me to our Showers. Shout out R. We appreciate you chiming in last episode, this episode. We should trade down from 25 unless a top corner falls to them or Barton. Now, again, we hit Barton. We know we love Barton. the value positionally is lower, and the draft is strong for us through 100. You're right, but I think you're overlooking how best player available will impact that pick, because I think if you've got a premium grade, even like on a receiver, I think they're going to be tempted to go with it, and it's not going to be a fan favorite move, right? Because obviously that's not a need. You're looking at that wondering, how do you fit a guy in there? There's so many other players that you could have at 25 or whatever. But I'm telling you guys, if like I'm gonna kill Brian Thomas Jr. and A.D. Mitchell, one of those guys falls, that in any other draft is going to be like a top 10 pick, maybe top 5 depending on the class. You're going to take that guy. So be looking out for that. I don't know that they will trade back from 25. I think there's going to be too much value there. But I do think that if I had to guess, I do think Goot wants another pick in that second round, maybe third round range, because there's a lot of talent there, right? Like there's a lot across the board. So I think that will be interesting, but I don't know that they trade down from 25.
Yeah, I think looking at 25, like, and that's a good call about the corners. I think if they trade up from 25, it would be for one of the corners. Like if Mitchell or Arnold got in the range for them, even Cooper DeJean, if they liked them that much, I could see them trading up. I don't see another position that they would trade up for from 25. I think there's enough offensive linemen and enough tackles where you don't need to do that. Trade down from 25, I think it's definitely possible. And, you know, he loves his picks, and he made that clear today.
Yeah.
They already have 2 seconds, 2/3. If you trade it back a little bit, either to the very bottom of the first round or early part of the second round, I think that makes sense too, because I think there's a lot of value there. And they can get, again, there's going to be a lot of guys that are graded similarly, and you get a few of them from a trade back, a couple of guys instead of just one at 25. So I think it's possible. I think if it's a corner in the first round, it's either they're staying and somebody, fell to them, I don't even think DeJean would be a fall. I think that's kind of the ranges of where he's going to go, is close to 25.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of insight into that too today.
Yeah. Or it could be, Kool-Aid. If they trade up, I think it is for a corner. But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to them trading back from 25. I think it makes sense. I think there's value in that. And I would personally, I love that they have 2 seconds and 2/3. I think that's great. And I think that's where you really start building the depth of the team there. And I don't think there's much difference between who you're going to pick at 25 and who you could pick at, say, 35 with a trade back. Like I think the value is pretty close. So if they move back and they got an extra pick or two, it's fine with me.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset about it. And I think that's where it comes down to the poker game. Them trading back or even trading up, I think is going to depend on who else is motivated and how, right? So, if, for instance, if one of those QBs falls into that 25 range and they miss their shot, at getting that, and they want to get back in there and get another shot at it, I think 25 could be a range where that kind of action happens. But it's just it's an interesting spot to be, because they very realistically could move up a few spots and get a premier player, or you move back a few spots and you get another potentially premier player. But I think one thing to look at, and we won't be able to predict this. I mean, we can a little bit, but they talk about rare athletes, right? Rare guys. Now, we did get a little bit of insight today into, how things are shaking out right now, who believes what. So there was a tweet out there, a report from Peter Schrager, that there are only 6 surefire defensive first-round picks, and DeJean was not one of them. So that one is interesting to me. And this is from one source, right? So this is what we're talking about. This is one team that could say there's only 6, and there's another team that could say there's 12. And DeJean could be one of those 6 on another team where he's not on this team. So that's where, take these things with a grain of salt. I would say,
especially this week.
Well, right. Fog of war, smoke screens
Mhm.
everywhere. Even some of the stuff that Goot said, I think, is a little smoke screeny.
Yes.
13, 14 picks, I just like, okay, maybe.
He loves draft picks, and we can, if you want to talk about this later or now, but I'd be really surprised if they came out of the draft with fewer than 10 picks. Like, I think he's probably going to trade and move around. So maybe he does enough move and they come out with 10 guys. But I think if it's below double digits, I would be surprised. I think
I
I
I
think he's
agree with
really
that.
excited to have 11 picks. And I, I don't, 13 or 14 seems like a lot. I don't think he'll get up that high, but I could see him getting 12
Yeah.
or just staying with 11, somehow. But I think he's excited to have that many cracks at it.
Yeah, and after listening to him, we tongue in cheek 13, 14 picks. I would be surprised if he landed with less than 10. I think it's going to make training camp very interesting because he's probably going to have to cut some draft picks, which he doesn't like doing. He might not. We'll see.
Essentially. I think the other interesting part, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
go
is
ahead,
like
go ahead.
with 11 picks, maybe they start saying, you know what, we don't need 13 or 14. Maybe a trade or two where you pick up something next year.
Now that would be something I'm interested in. And that's where,
Yeah.
man, Goot's first draft in 2018 when he went down, and we've talked about this before, but going down and coming back up to get Alexander. When he traded back, there was a lot of panic. And I was like, I had a feeling it wasn't over. There was more to come. But I thought he navigated that really brilliantly, man. He ultimately didn't move that far down. He still seemingly got his guy, and Jair Alexander has been one of the guys, and picked up what eventually was Darnell Savage, I think, right?
Yeah, the following year became
I think
Savage.
that was the
Became the
pick.
Savage pick, yeah.
So, yeah, if he could pull a move like that again, I would love to see that. Because you don't necessarily need to maximize the value you're getting out of this draft. It's not like the Bears, good Lord. Sure hope they hit on all 4 of those picks. But, when you've got 11 picks, you got an opportunity to stack a valuable pick next year. Man, take advantage. I would love to see that. I think that'd be awesome. And then, hey, how about this? Let's play that out. You go off and win a Super Bowl, and you end up with 2 first-round picks after that.
That would be awesome.
Let me catch up on some of our comments here real quick, because I saw a few of them I did want to talk about. Yeah, there's some good ones. Couple of mentions of Watson insurance. I hear you there. I am very much in the camp that he has figured out his hamstring issues, and he's going to be healthy this season. You can't do anything about freak injuries; those happen to everybody. But he wasn't injury prone before he got to the Packers, so I'm going to assume that's a solvable issue, and we should all hope that it is, because he is an absolute freak. The guy is a freak. There's not a receiver in this draft like him. There's a few that are close, but none of them are as big as him, and I would argue that none of them are as explosive as him. But we don't need to get into all of that. There's a very real possibility that they are looking for that, though, right? And it's not insurance necessarily forever, but we did see that Christian Watson's speed is insanely valuable in that offense. And I still think a lot of fans are failing to really understand how much of a decoy he was and how much he was responsible for a lot of the separation that guys like Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs were able to get. I even Dontavian Wicks, but that man's in a different category on his own when it comes to separation.
Yeah.
So we'll let him stand there. But seriously, with this offense and even the tight ends, when you have speed that defense is terrified of, that is different. And when he's not there, you have to game plan differently. So that's why I look at like an A.D. Mitchell or Brian Thomas. Those guys, as far as their speed goes, very similar to Christian Watson. And the things that you can do to a defense with those guys, even though they're not the same size, it's similar. So if Watson does go down, and we talked about who they would draft being that receiver 4 type guy, Watson does go down, you can seamlessly backfill him with another just speed downhill or downfield freak. So yes, there's a little element of insurance there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Tyler was the one with the question. He mentioned Jermaine Burton, and
Yeah.
they brought him in for a visit. Now,
Yep.
if they're really interested, or if that was a smokescreen, who knows? But they did bring him in for a visit. I think it's a possibility that they're looking at that, and it's not necessarily to replace Watson. It's more so like if they can't get his hamstrings right, or if another injury pops up, they have somebody there. And because if you look at the receivers are good. I mean,
They're good.
I love Jaden Reed. I love Wicks. Romeo Dobbs has his, but they're not speedsters. And
they're
does
fast,
change.
but they're not the same speed as Christian Watson.
Yeah, I mean, few are, and who they draft may not be as fast. But if you don't have that element of a deep threat that much, like a guy that can just run past you, they have to be like kind of a schemed deep threat in a way. Whereas Watson can just line up and go and run by you. And I think there's a possibility, like I could see them taking somebody with the extra picks that they have this year and hoping that person could kind of be the complement. And at times, if Watson's not available or on the field with Watson, who knows, kind of a deep threat guy with a little bit of size too, because they don't like to take small guys. But yeah, I think it's a possibility. I don't think too early, but Tyler mentioned pick 91. Yeah,
I think that'd be a
think
great spot for that kind of a pick.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, and Burton, he's fast. He's not quite as fast as those other guys, A.D. Mitchell and Brian Thomas and Christian Watson, but he's a speed dude, and I like the guys that come out of Alabama. They make good receivers down there, man. They just do. So I would not hate having an Alabama receiver, especially at that range. So yeah, let's go a little bit closer. We're gonna try to do a mock draft. If you guys want to hang around, would love your input on some of these picks we're gonna make. We have not ever done a mock draft before, so if anybody's rolling their eyes, another mock draft. We've never done one. We waited until now to do one, so we're just gonna go through it with you guys live. We'll come up to each pick and see who's available for the Packers and who we think we might want. We're not gonna do any of the other teams. Big drawn out process.
Nobody else matters.
Nobody else matters. We're the only ones that matter. It should be pretty quick, pretty sharp. But would love you guys to hang around and chime in on those picks. But before we get there, we're going to keep talking about a couple of other things. We did have the Goody press conference, which I think we kind of talked a lot about here and there to this point already. But let's just dial it back for just a second. What are you looking forward to the most, man?
Well, I kind of mentioned it. A couple of things. I'm excited to have new Packers, new acquisitions. Like that's exciting. There's new guys on the team, new guys to start rooting for and start learning them. That's exciting. Always exciting with the draft. It's really cool. Can't wait to talk to you about it and get your feelings on it once it happens. That's exciting. But I really like that they have 4 picks on the second day, and who knows, potentially more. But I really like having those 5 picks in the top 91. I think that's great. And to be in a situation that they're in with a young team already, but a young developing team, a team that we saw take a nice step last season, to now you're going to get 5 picks in the top 91. That's you don't see that very much, from teams that aren't rebuilding. Yeah. It puts them in a really good spot because you can add guys that hopefully have an immediate impact. They may or may not. We don't know. But it gives you the more swings at it. So maybe you get somebody that can help you right away in 2024, but it's also allowing you to start planning ahead for the future and looking ahead to, okay, who's an upcoming free agent that may or may not be back? Which guys are we uncertain about, taking a second or a third year jump? Like you're really able to start planning out your roster for future years, plus having the ability to help yourself in 2024 by having those extra picks within the top 91 like they do. So yeah, I'm excited for Friday night. I think Thursday night in general gets way overhyped the first round because it's just one pick and it's a lot of waiting around. I think Friday night's where the real action happens and where you can see a team really start building out their roster, and having 4 picks is great, and 5 in the top 91. That for me is what I'm really excited to see and how Goody navigates that.
Yeah, Friday night's going to be fun. There's a lot of action for us as Packers fans there. Something that you mentioned there, Tim, brought me back to a question that Tyler had here. is, essentially you're worried about a sophomore slump from any of these guys, and not them not being as good. Maybe like a Jaden Reed not being as good in 2024 or something like that. And not to pick on Jaden Reed, there's absolutely no sign of him slowing down. That's just sort of a random name I pulled out of the air. These guys aren't 100%. And the
Right.
first name that comes to mind for me, and this one I never really understood what happened, but Kamal Martin. He seemed to have a great rookie year and then just disappeared and actually got cut the next year. Like it was a very weird spike and downfall, and he just non-existent. Dropped off the map. So it happens. It definitely happens. And there's no guarantees that Stokes comes back. We kind of talked about that. Is that like another Bakhtiari situation, where it's this mysterious injury that's gonna last forever and we just don't know much about it? It kind of feels like that. I don't know, but I think that there's still a very real situation or scenario where he comes back and is his older form. My perspective or stance or whatever outlook, however you want to call it, if you've seen a player play at an elite level or a high level, there's no reason you shouldn't expect them to be able to do that again, unless there is a reason, right? An injury or, whatever it may be. And so that's what, Stokes is a big question, but I don't look at guys like that and go, oh, he'll never be good again. It's like, damn, he's young. If he gets healthy, I absolutely expect him to return to his rookie form, which sounds strange, but like that was his best year.
Yeah.
Same, across the board. So am I worried about it? I can't say I'm worried about any of them. It's just the possibility's always there.
Yeah, I mean, the Stokes thing's weird, and it's been ankle injury, foot injury, hamstring. So he's just had a lot of injuries, and I hope he can get healthy and come back. But as far as like sophomore slumps, I'm kind of looking at that as like the 2023 class. Yeah, I think it's got to be. I wouldn't say I'm worried about it, but I'm not automatically assuming like all these guys are going to come in and they're going to be great players. Like I hope
Right.
so, and a lot of them, as we saw last year, a lot of them showed tons of potential. But they got to keep doing it. Like 1 year, or for some of them, I mean, Tucker Kraft didn't start coming on until Thanksgiving, really, from the end of the season. We have to see more, and that's what this time of the off season's for. Like building your body up, getting your body ready, learning what you're capable of. The coach is putting you in the right spot and knowing how they want to use you. Like that's all right now. So yeah, I mean, it's the likelihood of a couple of those guys falling off, I think is, if you look at just percentages, it probably could happen. They're not all going to turn out to be Pro Bowl, all pro players as
Right.
good as they showed as flashes. So yeah, they have to keep getting better. There can't be any complacency. Like, wow, we went a lot further than people were expecting us, and look how good we are, and we're young, and we're just going to get better. Like, you have to put in the work, and we don't really know that about these guys because that was the first year in Green Bay. So like, yeah, I think you have to be not concerned, but it's a question mark. And I think that's part of the roster building too. Like if you're Goody, you can't just go and be like, we're set at these positions because look how good these rookies were. Like,
Right.
You don't want to leave yourself short, and then somebody comes back and they don't progress like you thought, and they fall off the cliff, and then you're left with an empty roster spot. And it goes back to kind of Goody said this, and I think he said it was a Ted Thompson thing. Like everybody looks at the draft right now, but you don't know what your roster is going to look like in October or November. So you can't just draft for what your roster looks like or what the players look like today. You kind of got to plan it out too for just, that goes back to best player available. But we could think one thing today, and once they start playing the games, some of these guys maybe aren't as good as we thought. And, you don't want to be shorthanded at those positions in the regular season. So not a concern where I'm real nervous about it, but it's definitely a thought, and they can't get to complacent. They really got to keep working and getting better.
Yeah. And that's, I think, why it makes sense for them to, go ahead and have a lot of picks in this draft. And I before was like, no way, man, you just don't need that many. And I kind of live in the middle. I think if they come away with 10, that's probably a pretty great draft. But yeah, and Arb brings up the Dillard move, head scratcher, horrid. seemingly. But the one thing that I brought up, and it's actually kind of interesting how similar they are, is the how his PFF grades, Dillard's PFF grades, compare to Devondre Campbell through their first 4 years. They're almost identical. And that leading up to before Devondre Campbell joined the Packers and had an All-Pro season. So that's where I would say in Goot we trust, and at the very least, they brought the guy in. It's not like they signed him to some massive contract. He's depth. No. He's an athlete. And at some point, a Super Bowl winning GM traded up to get him in the first round. So, like, he's not some out of nowhere bum, and he's still pretty young. So that's where I look at this, like, we need to – these guys are young. Like, think about yourself when you were in your 20s, man. Like, going from age 23 to age 28 is like 20 years. The amount of maturation and growth that happens over that period of time is astounding. So you got to give these guys some room to do that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, his play was he was awful in Tennessee. Now, you don't know what they were asking him to do, what the fit was with the coach. Like, there's a million things and we don't know.
Yeah.
I go back to like Philadelphia, and when he was drafted, he came from Washington State, which ran the Mike Leach offense, which is not an NFL offense. It's not an offense where you develop offensive linemen for the NFL. Like, he was, even though he's a first round pick, he was raw and he was not ready to step in and be a starter. My concern with that is he went to a really good team in the Eagles who have Jeff Statlin's their offensive line coach. He's one of the best coaches, let alone position coaches. He's one of the best coaches in football. He develops offensive linemen, Kelsey, Lane Johnson. And Dillard was basically competing with Jordan Mailata, who Jordan Mailata has turned out to be a franchise left tackle for the Eagles. But at the time, he wasn't. He didn't even play football. He came from Australia. He played rugby or something.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and he was the better player. And Dillard never was able to take his job. He had some injury issues. And that's more my concern. Like, if he didn't develop under Stoutland and the Eagles, are the Packers going to be able to develop him? And, he's 28 years old now. You kind of are what you are. Like, I think he started out behind just because of coming from the air raid offense in college. Like, it's not good for linemen. It's a bad projection. Right. Like, so he needed that development time. And it was a lot of starts and stops with the Eagles. Then Tennessee thought they could, they found him and he was going to be their left tackle, and they paid him a 3-year deal, and he lasted a year and he got benched twice. Wasn't very good. Like, I get why he's out there and available. Maybe the Packers can work with him and fix him. But I also, I wouldn't get too far ahead with him. Like, he was really bad last year, and that's true. He may be, I don't think he's true competition for Rasheed Walker, but he may be a guy that can make the team. He also may be a guy that gets cut in August. Yeah. So, just take
the offseason's not a failure if that happens,
Right. He's a lottery ticket, basically.
Yeah.
And
they've done well with those, right? And every time they've picked one up, it's not like, oh, this guy's going to be an all-pro. Like, we don't predict that. We go, who's this guy? And Rasul Douglas, who's this guy?
They picked up Dennis Kelly, who was an offensive lineman a few years ago, and everybody was like, he was coming off a bad year, I think, with the Colts or Tennessee or whoever. And he came in and he played a nice role for him. He was, when he had to play, he was pretty solid for him. He got him through games. So maybe that's what Dillard ends up being, and that's fine. Yeah. But again, maybe he gets cut in August and we forget about him, but it's not a big deal. And if they take a couple tackles in the draft, I think his chances of making the team go down a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's just,
which could happen.
Yeah, they brought somebody in that they see something in, and that they want to work with, and it gives them kind of insurance. And if they, if he's able to get his game together, it gives him good depth, which is great. And if he's not, you move on.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. Is like, I don't mind it. I like it. He's an athlete. He, again, high draft pick. There was something there that people saw, and he ultimately got beat out by a guy who, like you're saying, it's going to be a franchise left tackle who knows what was going on in Tennessee, but it wasn't great. It's not like Tennessee was the beacon of offensive strategy.
No,
they're running people out of there right now. So
exactly,
that's where it's like I kind of take that with a grain of salt too. look at it this way: are you going to fault a defensive player for not playing well in Joe Barry's defense? I'm not at this point. And so that's I'm willing to see what the guy can do, and if he gets cut in training camp, okay, well, then the best player won. But either way, like I like these little moves that happen because especially before the draft, I think it gives them more flexibility in the draft. Like you don't feel the pressure to come away from the same amount of from the draft with the same amount of depth as you did before. You just got a piece. He's a young guy. He is depth. He may not be a starter, but he's a great athlete. Tyler making a great point here. He was a 30 visit for the Packers in 2019. They liked him, so they saw something in him. And as far as front office goes, I think there's still a lot of the same folks there from 2019. And certainly LaFleur was around. And so, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I like it. I think it's a low-risk move. It kind of seems like the A.J. Dillon signing. It's like, hey, if it works out, great. If not, we can cut you in camp. So, yeah. Great stuff, though. Appreciate you guys chiming in and bringing up some good points for us and good questions. This is what we do, right? This is the time before the draft. We're all kind of speculating, figuring things out, what's going to happen. So that said, let's do this little mock draft. I don't think this has to take a long time. We're not, like I said, we're not going to try to draw this out.
You just want to do first 2 days, like through the third round, or
let's see how long it takes. Here.
Okay.
Let's jump into this thing and see what happens. So we're not going to pay too much attention to the little toggles here. I tried to make them a little even, a little heavy on needs, so we can play with that. But we're just going to jump in here. Oh, wait a second. Okay, so we got 25. Do I have to claim all the picks I want to make? You guys are witnessing me be an amateur mock drafter. This is almost embarrassing because there's probably a lot of you that have done hundreds of these. Do we have to claim every pick we want to make, or can we just claim our team? Do you know? I can't tell. We're just going to jump in and find out.
Yeah, let's find out.
Okay. Start draft. Here we go. All right. Packers are on the clock at 25. And look at that. Oh, man. We got a board here. Holy crap. So, Adonai Mitchell fell. We've got Nate Wiggins here. Coach Budiak a couple weeks ago. He likes Nate Wiggins, man. Kool-Aid, McKinstry. We got a 30 visit guy here. And a Packers Twitter favorite, JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson, available as well. And then after that, we're getting into some names that I'd probably not like to see until the second round. Troy Franklin, Peyton Wilson, Tyler Nubbin, Lab McConkey, Zach Frazier. All right, so the top, 5 available we have here on the board. I'm going to say top 4 because we're not taking Troy Franklin with that first pick. It's not happening. All right, you got Adonai Mitchell, Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jackson Powers Johnson. Should we look and see what tackles are available? Just for
Yes, because there's one on there. Okay.
All right, so the tackles we have available here:
yeah.
Jordan Morgan, Tyler Guyton, Kieran Amagaji, and Kingsley Suamataia. Probably didn't do that right, but I
Close
All
enough.
right.
Kingsley from BYU.
Right, yeah, Kingsley from BYU. There we go. So these are 4 tackles that have been very popularly mocked to the Packers. I would describe all of them as Packers guys. I personally think they would be a reach to take these guys at 25. Maybe Jordan Morgan, maybe Guyton, maybe, but I don't think so. I think that they're going to be looking for guys like that more in the second round. Who are we taking here, Tim, at 25?
So I like Morgan a lot in the second round at like 41. I think he's definitely a Packers type of guy. Guyton, I know, is getting mocked there a lot. I could see them liking him, but he's only a tackle, and I don't think he gives you any ability to play guard, which they like. He's only played right tackle, so you'd really have to be projecting the left tackle too. But he's a great athlete. He's big. I don't know if he's too tall for them, if that's even a thing for them. It seems to maybe be, but he just doesn't give you a whole lot of versatility along the line there. Kool-Aid McKinstry is interesting because I wonder, like, he's under 8 for a RAS. He's like 7.5. RAS score, but he did test on with a fracture in his foot. So do they take that as a factor and maybe, bump up some of his numbers theoretically, thinking like, he would have tested a little better if he didn't have a fracture in his foot? I don't know, but he's young. He started at Alabama at cornerback since he was a freshman, which is pretty damn hard to do for Nick Saban. And I think he'd be a real solid pick. But they take freak athletes in the first round, and he's not that. Again, maybe they give him the benefit of the doubt because of the foot. And I think Wiggins is an athlete, but 173 pounds.
Yeah.
They're not doing
that. He
seems
to fall right out of that for me. And I know threshold, it's a hot topic right now. We're not supposed to get too hung up on that.
Right.
But 173 is pretty light for a guy that you need to tackle NFL running backs.
So if it's me, I think I would trade. We're not going to do trades, but I would trade back out of this.
Okay.
Sticking here, I would say would be one of either Kool-Aid, Morgan, or Guyton. So,
okay,
have your pick.
So I really think if this is the scenario we get, Goot's taking Adonai Mitchell. I really think that's what would happen. He's got a freak Ross score. Let's pull this up. We got to pull up his Ross score because
it's like 9.9.
It's nuts. It is. Yeah. It is. He's a freak. Off the charts.
I don't say it though.
He is a freak. He is one that could be quote unquote Watson insurance if there is, more injury issues. But let's see here, A.D. Mitchell. I want to be able to speak to his Ross score here because that's what they talk about. They talk about, freak athletes.
It is 9.99.
999. And I got one here that's showing 997. So, but essentially 6'2", 205, ran a 4.33 or a 4.35, depending on who you're looking at. He's got a 39.5-inch vertical and an 11.4 broad jump, which I think, that's 996. That is close to a record as far as the broad jump. And what does broad jump test for? That's explosion. So when you talk about this guy being able to just like burst, quickness, be physical, he's at the top of the charts for explosion.
He's 6'2", 205 is what he measured at the combine. So he's
not
tall.
Small.
No, he's not small. He's big enough for them, for sure.
And definitely qualifies as a freak here.
He's a freak.
He's an absolute freak. So I think Packers Twitter probably wants Kool-Aid or maybe even JPJ here. This is where I think brace yourselves for this guy or the other one, Brian Thomas Jr., which he went in this mock 2 picks before us to the Vikings. That might not be good. I don't know if we want that. Let's see who the Vikings. How did this play out here at the top? Hang on a second. So the Bears did take Caleb Williams. Drake May goes to Washington.
I think he didn't.
Daniels goes to the Patriots.
He must have done no trades, right?
I don't think I didn't do no trades.
Yeah, so that's going to be. I mean, the Vikings still end up with McCarthy, just at 11.
Getting McCarthy at 11. Okay, so somewhat predictable there in the top. Brock Bowers going in the top. The receivers you would expect going off the top there. Cooper DeJean here goes at 13 to the Raiders. So that's, big possibility there. Latu, Mitchell, Latham, Arnold. Barton goes to the Bengals at 18 in this one. So there's one of the big guys off the board. I know Jerzon Newton is one that some folks have put out there as a potential D lineman out of Illinois. He goes at 19 to the Rams in this one. All right, and then we're gonna make our pick here.
You go ahead.
We got let's give our guys some shout outs here. We you guys, I think Tyler went with Kool-Aid or trade down. We're not gonna do trades. We're gonna keep it simple. R says Wiggins is little. I agree. And it looks like the votes are mostly going towards Kool-Aid here. So let's see here. Mitchell too thin, not a Packers type. Okay,
he's not too thin. He's 200 pounds, a little over 202.
Yeah,
at 202.
Yeah, he's he's pretty big. You're thinking of Xavier
Yeah,
Worthy. He's the
Worthy's
other one.
165.
He's
Yeah,
a-
they ain't
he's a
taking
little
him.
guy. No, that won't be in the. He's outside the thresholds. All right, so I won't pick Adonai Mitchell here because I'm not trying to just be a total wild card. I will go ahead. Let's go with the crowd. Let's take Kool-Aid. I think this would be a good pick. He's a 30 visit. It's a very, very safe pick. So yeah, so we'll take him there. Oh, did I? Oh, okay. So I only picked one round. All right. So that was our practice round. Let's do a new mock. We're gonna go. What do you want to do? Let's do 4 rounds. How about that?
4 rounds.
4 rounds seems reasonable. We don't need to mess with 5, 6, 7. We can play around with that later. All right. Here we go. We're starting to back up again, and we get to pick 25. Okay, so Jerzon Newton is on the board on this one. Adonai Mitchell's still there. Ooh, Nate Wiggins. Brian Thomas Jr. is also there. And then we get down to Jackson Powers Johnson and some of the other names that were there on the last one.
Well, I know what you want then. Brian Thomas. Go ahead. Just
I
take
mean,
him.
no. Hang on. Let's look at this because this is a little bit of a different layout here. But let's see if there's any kind of where'd the favorites go? Kind of a predictable top there. Where did our guy DeJean fall? He's not available. He went to the Jaguars at 17. And then some other predictable names going through there. Amarius Mims not available, goes at 21 to the Dolphins. Kool-Aid goes to 22 to the Eagles. At 23, the Vikings are taking Gaitan. Barton goes right before the Packers at 24 to the Cowboys. And again, we are on the clock here. We've got Jerzon Newton available here. Now, this seems like a value pick. D-line, I would love to see a D-lineman. I'm a big fan of the mountains in the middle. Again, Adonai Mitchell, freak. I think he falls into what they would take in the first round just because of his freak athleticism. Nate Wiggins available. We kind of talked about that. He's a little bit too small probably for the Packers here. Brian Thomas Jr., man, when you watch him, I see him being receiver 1 in other draft classes. Like that guy, again, freak. So when you got 2 freaks available, and I don't know how they rank these freaks. I hope I'm not being offensive by saying freaks so much. These are compliments, terms of endearment. Freak athletes. I'm going to go ahead and say I want Jerzon Newton here. What's the crowd like on this second
Brian
round?
Thomas.
Are we taking Brian Thomas? Is that what Brian Thomas all day? Okay, all right. Hey, well, if I got the support, we're going Brian Thomas. We got the backing of the crowd. We're taking Brian Thomas as our first round pick. Definitely should be prepared for that, Packers fans, because I think those two have a chance. Adonai Mitchell, Brian Thomas, of being there at 25, and those are very tempting picks because they're not supposed to be there at 25. They're just not. All right, we're here at 41.
Who are the tackles?
Let's see here. So far as this goes, our top available, we got Ladd McConkey. We just took a receiver.
Yeah, we're not taking him.
And darn it, we're not going to do another one. Don't do that to us, Goody. Bo Nix is available. This is an interesting one because that is him and Penix are both available. That's where you could have other teams come and call in saying, hey, we didn't get our guy when we wanted to, maybe in the top 15 or something. You could get some value by trading back at 41. We have said we're not going to do trades here. We want to go ahead and keep this simple, make a pick. So we're ruling out the top 3 that are available. Tim says go see who's available at tackles. So let's see what tackles are on the board. All right, we got Kieran Amagaji. We got Kingsley from BYU. We got Brandon Coleman, who we have said multiple times is a good guy.
Yeah, but he's going to be a guard. But okay, second round.
Fair enough. But the versatility there, here they've got him ranked at 70, so 41 might be a little high. Blake Fisher available. Rosengarten is one that has been creeping up as a potential in that 25 to 41 range for the Packers. I disagree with that. I think he's been too inconsistent for me for going that high, and especially when you got other names available here. I could see that later on, maybe third round. Dominic Pooney's available again. There's a lot of names.
How about linebackers?
All right, so we're looking at linebackers now. Again, we're still at 41 here. If you're listening and you can't see what we're doing, we do have the mock draft up. We're
there you
looking
go,
at who's
Cooper
best available. All right. Now, if Edgerrin Cooper's there at 41, this ranking has him ranked at 59. I don't agree with that. I think he's a very good value at 41. What do we got going on in the comments here? We got, let's see here. I think everybody want Edgerrin, and I think we're going Edgerrin. We agree with Edgerrin. We're taking Edgerrin. We're going Edgerrin Cooper. We're going to get the meanest linebacker in this draft at 41. All right, now we fall down to 58. Let's see here. It looks like some of the other folks have come off the board.
Jaden Hicks is there.
All right, so as far as our top available, we got Ricky Pearsall. Already took a receiver. We're not going to do that. TJ Tampa is a name I know folks have tied to the Packers a little bit. Cornerback out of Iowa. Jaden Hicks I know is a big favorite of the Packers Twitter mock drafters. We're at 58. He's ranked 54. It seems like a pretty solid pick. Marshawn Nealon is there. I know that's a name that some folks are even saying potentially for the Packers in the first round. PFF here has him ranked a little lower, down at 63. I do think that would be a pretty good pick here at 58, maybe even at 41. I don't know if he's a first rounder. What do we think here, Tim? Are we drafting for need? What are we doing?
I say either Jaden Hicks or Marshawn Nealon.
I see, Chris, you're asking for Chris Jenkins. He just
That's another good one.
Right before to the Cowboys, so he is not on the board. Some of the names that did come off the board, because I know we were someone had brought up running back earlier in the conversation. So Jonathan Brooks goes off the board at 51 to the Steelers. Good pick for the Steelers. They land Jonathan Brooks, and that's solid. No other running backs at all. A couple tackles come off the board. Xavier Worthy comes off at 50 to the Eagles. Xavier Leggett, he's one that I'm a big fan of, goes off at 53 to the Eagles. Bo Nix off the board to the Browns at 54. So that's a little bit of like who's gone where there. Javon Bullard went right before the Packers. Safety out of Georgia at 57 to Tampa Bay. So, yeah, I think Jaden Hicks is the pick here. Are we going Jaden Hicks?
I like Hicks. I think
Nealon. It's a good combination of value and need.
Michael Hall Jr. is a good name too for the D-line. I would go Hicks or Nealon.
Okay, let's go with Hicks. I like Jaden Hicks. Let's take him off the board here at 58. Now we're jumping down to pick number 88. Apparently the Dolphins forfeited picks 85. Is that?
That might be like did they tamper or something?
I don't know. Did the time run out? Like, that's funny. It's just like a random happening, I guess. All right, so here down at pick 88, some names that are available. One interesting here at the top, Trey Benson. I like that name at 88. Marshawn Lloyd also available there. Jalen McMillan is another receiver I think has potential to end up with the Packers maybe in this area. Depending on whether they've taken one or not already, but he is, I think, a little bit underrated. Let's see here. Renardo Green, cornerback available. Cooper Beebe.
I was going to say, what offensive linemen are there? Yeah,
so all right. So let's look at the guards real quick because I saw another one creeping in to view. Mason McCormick, I think, is a great value. PFF's got him ranked a little bit lower here at 95, but we're picking at 88. This is one of those where, all right, if he's ranked at 95, they're taking him at 88. You can't really call that a stretch, in my opinion. Tempted to take one of these guys here. What do you think?
See who's at tackle real quick, but I agree with you.
At tackle. I'm going to overlook the running back position here. I think I'd rather – I think there's just more positional value in the offensive lineup. Pooney is available at tackle out of Kansas. Pooney a lot. There have been a lot of folks that like him.
I say Pooney or Beebe. Those would be my votes.
Right. We got anybody voting here for us?
They're agreeing. Pooney, Beebe. Those are good ones. Yep.
All right. Let's go with Pooney then. We'll take it. We'll participate in the masses here with the Packers mock drafters. He's been a popular one. All right, we jump down to 91 now. Not very far at all. The only folks that go between 88 and 91 are Malik Washington, receiver out of Virginia, and Dadrion Taylor Demerson. I know that's a safety that some Packers fans like. Goes to the Cardinals at 90. All right, now we got Dominic Pooney. Let's review what we've gotten so far here. Our first round pick was Brian Thomas Jr. Our second round pick at 41, we got our guy Edgerrin Cooper. We got our linebacker. Then we drop down and we get Jaden Hicks at number 58. And then follow that up with Dominic Pooney. So I think I am, as the kids would say, cooking so far.
BB's still on the board, right?
Yeah, BB would still be on the board here. No offensive lineman came off between 88 and 91. So we still have Trey Benson available, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen McMillan, BB, Mason McCormick, a linebacker that's available there, Jeremiah Trotter. I know that's one that some folks like. I don't know that he'll end up with the Packers. Braylon Trice is available, edge rusher out of Washington.
We just had a comment what D linemen are available. That's a good one.
Yeah, let's check out the D linemen. See if one of my favorites is still on there. Ooh, Tavondre Sweat, man, I'm tempted.
They're not going to touch him.
I'm tempted.
They're not touching him.
I think they might, but I'm tempted.
They're not touching him.
Michael Hall Jr. did come in for a 30 visit. He's available there. I think that's a very reasonable expectation to see that they would pick him there. I don't know. There's a lot of directions we could go here. What are we thinking?
I mean, there's some running backs, but I'd rather just wait. I would go. I like BB a lot, and I think they load up on offensive linemen.
BB's a fun one. You could get a tackle and a guard back to back there. Yeah.
I mean, I think Pooney's going to be a guard or a center, but regardless, you're going to get two offensive linemen, move them around however you may. I think they're going to be real solid, both of them. I like BB. Michael Hall is a nice one. And yeah, I think those probably would be my two guys. I think I'd wait on running back.
Still a lot of running backs.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys, and it's not. I just wouldn't pass up on linemen for running backs.
Yeah, I don't see the Packers doing that either. So we got OT. We can get both of these in here. Okay, so we got BB, Mason McCormick. I love both of those guys. Let's go ahead and take BB here. Now, real quick, I did see someone bring up, was it Andrew Phillips? Is he available? Does not look like it unless he's way further down. I don't think he's this far down the list.
No. Go up. You either missed him or he might have just went.
I don't think I think he's come off the board.
The two Florida State ones are, Jones and Green are decent. I would be fine if they took either one there.
Yeah.
I hate waiting this long to take a corner, but
it looks like there's going to be some names on the board at corner that are really worth paying attention to.
I would go BB personally, but
okay. Let's see here. What's the crowd saying? I think the vote is for BB. I know Sweat's Ross is bad, but the man is 365 pounds and he can move. He's
only going to play against the
tempting
run,
mountain,
and he just got arrested for being really drunk. He's such a not. There's no way they would touch him. I mean, he'd fit in Wisconsin, but I mean, how dumb can you be for getting arrested a week before the draft?
Not a high intelligence move. We'll say that.
No.
Okay, so corner here, we're we lean away from it. I think I'm going at BB. I think that's the best value pick here. Again, we are at pick number 91. BB ranked 93 on PFF, so right in that range. I think if you're getting a guy like that in the third round, you're doing pretty good. He's got an attitude, and I love that. So, all right, now we are down to pick number 126. So let's see here. Where can I see who I've already picked, or do I have to just roll back through it? We don't need to review it. We've already done it.
Good.
If you need to rewind, we just reviewed. Rewind, is that even a real word anymore? That's kind of funny. All right, so the top names on the board right now at pick 126, you got center out of Penn State, Hunter Norzad. You got receiver out of Louisville, Jamari Thrash. I would not put it past Goot to take best player available if it's a receiver at this place. He might do it. Audric Estime, Notre Dame running back. I don't think he's going to be the type of running back that they will take out of this draft. They've already got a couple big guys. Tanner Bortolini. This is a tempting pick. He is very much a Packers guy, athletic, versatile. Interesting one there. Cole Bishop, safety out of Utah. This might be a tempting one. Like him. PFF does not like him, but I don't know if he's around here at 126 in round 4.
I would be shocked. Who we got at? So I think D-line and corner would be 2 spots to look here.
Okay, so let's filter out for D-line and corner here. We've got interior D-line, and then we've got corner. Okay, so at corner you've got the Missouri corner, not Rakestraw, but Chris Abrams-Drain.
He's real light, though.
I don't know much about him. Can't say I've looked at him.
Yeah, he's real light. I don't think he's our guy. Mason Smith was in for a visit.
Okay.
D-lineman and he's big and long and young. But he had an injury, and so maybe the injury would knock him off their board. I don't know, but they brought him in for a visit.
Yeah, so that's one that could be an interesting one. When you get to this point in the draft, the guys that they brought in for visits, it seems like they lean towards them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you still have Cam Hart on the board here. He's one that some folks think will go much earlier than this, maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round. So I think DB here or D-line, as far as like thresholds go, all the criteria, all that, I think Mason Smith makes the most sense with this pick.
I'm down.
Is there another position we want to look at before we pull that trigger? Let's see here. So running backs that are available, you still have Will Shipley, Monmouth, Jaden Sheridan. Haven't done any scouting on him, but shout out to the small school guys. Cody Schrader out of Missouri. Kamani Vidal, he's one that we've talked about a few times on the podcast. A little cannonball. Maurice Jones-Drew like. Isaac Garindo is one. I don't know that he'll be around at this point. He is a phenomenal athlete. 4.3, 340, 221, man. 4.33 at 221 is incredible. Like that, he's really being overlooked in this. That's one I think would be a great pick at this point. PFF's got him down at 190, so maybe a little early for us, but still some talent on the board there at running back. Let's take another look.
People are saying Jalen Wright, but he must be gone because I don't see him in the running back.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely gone. He went.
But I would love Jalen Wright, but yeah, he's gone already.
He's one that I think would be like if the Packers take one or take a running back early, I think he's probably the one. You talk about rare traits. I think his speed is rare in the running back class. And it's not necessarily showing up on the 40. He's got a good 40, but I think long term, you watch his film, man. When he's going beyond 40, he is just running away from people. Home run in a bottle. So let's see here. What other positions we want to look at here for the 126th pick? We've looked at cornerback and D-line. Are we interested in a linebacker here at all? Any names? Trevin Wallace is still on the board.
Yeah, I think he's a really good athlete. Another guy that visited top 30. I think he's very much a Packers kind of pick.
Yeah.
So I could see him here, or we're only doing 4 rounds, but I could see him at some point on day 3 to the Packers.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so then as far as top overall options go and just value, we're kind of in sort of a gray area right now. There's some guys available that PFF probably has graded far different from other areas or other outlets. Actually, I'm curious. I wonder if Cam Kitchens is still available. What does it say? What do we got here? So Oladapo's still there. He's one that came in.
Too, yeah.
Trey Taylor is one that I like. Again, Thorpe Award winner last year and just being totally overlooked. Ed Reed's nephew. That's a very, very interesting one to me. I really would like to see where he goes. Yeah, Cam Kitchens is off the board. His teammate James Williams is available. We won't go that low. All right. what position we taking here in the 4th round?
Is there anybody in the chat? No, I don't see anybody mention anybody.
I'm going to go with Mason Smith.
Yeah, I was going to
think that
say
one
I'd
makes the
probably
most
go
sense.
give me a lineman again. So Mason Smith on D-line, I'd be fine with that.
We're going with Mason Smith here. All right, we're going to get a grade for our draft from PFF. They're going to tell us how smart we are. Okay, so B-. I'll take a B-.
All right, whatever.
I like that. I totally disagree with a D- for drafting Edgerrin Cooper at 41, but whatever.
Yeah.
Solid so far. All right, so to review,
Fine with it.
for our first round pick, we took Brian Thomas Jr. at 25. For our second round pick at 41, we took Edgerrin Cooper. For our second round pick at 58, we took Jaden Hicks. For our third round pick at 88, we took Dominic Pooney. Our third round pick at 91, we took Cooper Beebe. And our fourth round pick at 126, we took Mason Smith. So I broke a few of my own rules here from our mock draft challenge this last week. But ultimately, if the draft pans out like this, I think that would be pretty stinking awesome. But at the end of the day, who knows, right?
Exactly.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So we've gone almost an hour and a half here on this podcast. What did we not cover, right? Like, what have we not covered about the draft here? We didn't go into rounds 5, 6, or 7. There's a whole lot of fun stuff that could happen there. R is giving us a B. I appreciate that, R. PFF
Sam
gave us
says
a B-.
he loves it. He'd be happy.
Sam loves it. We got Acme coming in. Hey, let us know our grade on that draft, Acme. I don't know if you were able to catch it or not. But appreciate y'all for hanging out with us this late. You know, we're having some fun here on the Packers Weekly Podcast. But shout out in the comments, guys. What are y'all's draft plans? You know, you guys watching at home? You gonna go somewhere? What are you gonna do? How many mock drafts can you possibly do between now and Thursday? Are you guys gonna just get as many in as you can?
No, don't. Just go outside and touch grass. Enough with the mock drafts. But I guess this is it. You got a couple days, and then you don't have to do it again for a year. So maybe get them all in while you can.
Right. Oh, Acme's pumped about BTJ there. Love that. Appreciate it. I'm telling you guys, brace yourself for a receiver at that pick number 25 because the guys that could end up there shouldn't be there. Just they don't belong there, and that's the kind of pick that Goot makes. So I'm just pumped. You know, again, just to sort of maybe tie this up and summarize it, I'm ready to strap in and just say, in Goot we trust. Whatever he picks, however it falls, I trust him. He's drafted well. He's navigated the draft well. I'm excited to see who the next Green Bay Packers are going to be. What about you, man?
I'm with you. And I know we just did a mock draft, but before we get out of here, I know we're getting long, but before we get out of here, what's your best guess as of right now for who the first pick is?
Best guess for pick number 25. And this really is sincerely just because of how the board falls. This is not me wanting this, but it does sound like I want it. I do root for exciting things that you just have no idea how they'll pan out. I really believe that at 25, best player available by a long shot is going to be receiver. And I think it's going to be really tough for Goot to not take that. So without going further and saying, oh, he'll trade, because I think that's also a very realistic outcome. I really think 25, there's a high percentage they draft a receiver there. And just ironic that after all these years of us begging for a first-round receiver, the year we're like, oh, we don't really need one, but all right, we'll finally get a first-round receiver. What about you?
It would be shocking. That's one of the picks where I would be really surprised. But, I mean, Packers Twitter would be really fun.
Yeah. No, it would. And here's Sam. After a Jordan Love pick, I stopped guessing what he would do. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, that's it, man. There were so many people. And I will say, you guys can pull receipts if you really have the time to go that far back in my Twitter. From day one, from minute one, I said, in Goot we trust. If he's taking Jordan Love here, he believes he's the guy. He believes that he sees something in him. And I got a lot of hell from some of my friends for saying he might think he's the next Patrick Mahomes, and I won't get too far ahead of myself, but he doesn't look that bad. So anyway, yeah, in Goot we trust. If he's taking somebody with that first pick, we're just like, what? My first moment of that sort of like give it up and trust the GM was when Ted drafted Greg Jennings and Nick Collins. And I was like, who the heck is that? Well, they ended up pretty good. So that's definitely the lesson there. Just enjoy who comes along and trust that this team knows what they're doing and they're bringing the right guys.
Yeah, we can talk about it and debate it and break it all down and all that stuff, but just enjoy it. It's a new Packer, and Goody knows more than all of us, and that's not an insult to anybody, but him and his staff, him and the scouts and all of his staff, they know what they're doing. Trust that they're going to, pick the right thing, even if you disagree with it. Just he's a Packer, so start rooting for him right away when they pick him. And
absolutely,
yeah, we can debate it, but they know more than us, and he's been right more often than he's been wrong, especially lately. So, hey, whatever he thinks is right, even if I disagree with it or it's not necessarily one of my guys, I'm going to be hopeful.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm very, very hopeful, but just, the guy's got a formula. He knows what he's doing. I'm ready to see how it plays out, and it obviously depends on 31 other GMs, and I think that maybe back when Justin Jefferson was starting to come down the board, he was licking his chops thinking he'd get a shot at that guy, and did not. But yeah, man, we just got to enjoy it. We got to strap in and get excited because it's like Christmas Day for a Packers fan, or whatever other holiday you celebrate. I'm not trying to leave anybody out. I celebrate Christmas, and but maybe it's like your birthday, right? Everybody gets presents and surprises on their birthday, so maybe it's like that. But either way, getting some surprises, I think is exciting. It's exciting to see new Packers come on board. So, thank y'all for hanging out with us this week on the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. We sincerely appreciate it. Shout out to all you guys that have been going back and forth in the comments. We had a great time with you this evening, and I do hope that you will join us again next week on Monday at 9:30 p.m. Central, because we are going to dissect the hell out of this draft. We are going to go all through every pick. We're going to talk about them. We're going to find as much as we can, man. We're going to dig in. We're gonna have a lot of fun with this and figure out who these next future Packers stars are gonna be. Yeah. But if y'all would, please check us out on all the socials. Spike that like button for us. Follow us and subscribe to the Packers Talk YouTube channel. And we will see y'all not next week. We will be streaming during the or right after the draft this week. So Thursday evening, Friday evening, maybe Saturday. So jump in. Keep an eye out on Twitter, or you'll get the notification on YouTube if you're subscribed. They give you a little buzz whenever we pop on. So check it out. We will see y'all then and next week. And, of course, go Pack. Go.